Welcome to the BDYD podcast, and we are in the mean streets of El Lago, deep in the midst of COVID-19. So we're doing things a little differently. We're going to do a recorded interview in person, and this week it's going to be flip the script a little bit. I'm going to be interviewed by my lovely wife Sandra, and she has been talking about doing this interview for a long time. She suggested, and I've been a little resistant to it, I'll be honest. Just because I've got a story, and I don't know, a lot of people that know me know it, but I haven't just put it out there to just the masses. And she's encouraged me to do this, and I think now's as good a time as any. So, Sandra, I'm going to hang over the reins of control and let you roll with this one.
Okay. One thing that I was telling Darin this week is that if anybody has learned how to see your blessings, it's him. And as he tells this story, you're going to see how he is able to hold his blessings when many people would call it a burden. But I'm just going to ask you a few questions. So, in your lifetime, you've had a lot of physical challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about when they started. What happened?
So, my But Did You Die story, hence the name of the podcast, started pretty early. I was about 3 years old, and I started having seizures, and they didn't know what it was. And my dad was traveling a lot, and my mom was, he was in and out of the states doing non-destructive testing up in Alaska, and we were living in San Antonio at the time. My mom was taking me to all these doctors trying to figure out. I'd just fall out. And I'd been to several doctors, and they couldn't figure it out. I was having seizures some 3 or 4 times a day. We finally got to a doctor, Dr. Ruttman, and he said, your son has a condition called epilepsy. And so they did a lot of research on it, and epilepsy is where you have your brain waves get electrical waves get short-circuited kind of in you, and you fall to the ground. And there's grand mal and petit mal, and I had the ones that were kind of violent. We used to joke, I'd be flopping around, just put me in the bathtub, throwing the laundry and some dish soap, and the laundry would get washed because I'd be flopping around. But anyway, that's an epileptic joke that I can say because I'm an epileptic. But not to make light of it, my parents went through hell because it was very new to them. It was very new. The diagnosis, epilepsy had not been diagnosed for very long. It was, a lot of times people were put in insane asylums, or they were talking about in the early days that they were possessed. Their body was being taken over. And luckily we tried drugs, and they said, this might work, this might not work, and they just tried different cocktails. Well, I had the purple medicine and the white squirt medicine, and that's how I knew it. And I'd take those, and as long as I'd take them, they would subside. And my mom and dad made the decision from that point on that you're not going to have a stilted childhood. We're not going to hold you back. You're still going to be all boy and do what boys do. Now, I couldn't play contact sports because of the seizures it could cause them. And I couldn't be around a lot of disco lights. I was born in the 70s, because that could trigger, the lights could trigger an epileptic seizure. But, now everybody wears a bike helmet. Well, they didn't have bike helmets in the 70s. And I wanted to jump ramps. We'd build ramps out of plywood and trash cans, and we'd jump trash cans and, fall down or whatever. And they didn't have any problem me doing it. I just had to wear a Dallas Cowboys football helmet. So whenever it was time to go hardcore, I'd throw on a football helmet, and we'd go jump ramps or jump whatever we could find. But yeah, I never played sports, but I got into Boy Scouts and learned a lot about life through Boy Scouts, and took that all the way through. My parents were troopers, and I remember my mom telling me, Darin, you define who you are. You don't let epilepsy define you. And then I was diagnosed with asthma at the same time. So it was a double whammy. And that's another reason I couldn't play sports. But we moved to Houston, and I was 11, and I begged and begged and begged to play sports because I wanted to fit in. It was a new town, new people, and I played soccer. And that was amazing because I got to be part of a team. I got to belong, and ironically, from never playing sports, organized sports, to we took the championship that year, and I was part of that team. And I wasn't hugging pine either. I had a pretty good kick on me and could run pretty fast. So that was exciting, and that built up my confidence, you know. So that was kind of my childhood. And then the last seizure I had was I was in 7th grade orchestra, and I was sitting for a chair test. And sometimes stress can bring on seizures. So here I was testing from 5th to 3rd chair, and I had a seizure. Well, my teacher didn't know about that, and they just thought I went blank. Luckily, I didn't have a violent one. I had one where you just stare out, and he thought I just gave up and quit. And I got sent to the principal's office. Needless to say, I didn't get 3rd chair. I got 5th. But my parents came up and explained what happened, and that was fine. You know, I got an apology because I was getting reprimanded for not participating.
Did you understand what was happening?
I knew what was happening because I was extremely tired. And after you come out, it's like coming out of a bad drunk. You know, you're disoriented and you're foggy, and
someone's fussing at you, and then
I'm like, I didn't do anything. You don't know that you had it. You knew you had something, but
you don't know time.
You're out, right? And it was short, but I just stared. They said my violin, you know, I called it my fiddle. Well, my fiddle went limp, and I just looked out at him, and he thought I was just being rude, but that wasn't the case. So I went on through high school and did fine, and
so that was your last one you remember having?
Yeah, but also in 7th grade PE, there was a kid who everybody thought was off, and he's a super strong kid, but he wasn't off. He had epilepsy, and he had the staring kind, and I got to be his buddy, so I would hang with him, and when I could recognize one coming on, I could set him down or roll him over so he wouldn't swallow his tongue, because I knew what to do, and I got to serve him in a way that, you know, I took what I knew, what was a battle for me, and I could help somebody else. And there was one time he was in the middle of a bench press, and I was standing over him, and I caught the weights when he just went into a seizure, and it would have choked him, you know. But I remember that language. I think about that time often because he was a cool kid, man. And I don't know how I've lost contact with him and all that, but yeah, he just you know, we had that bond, and I knew that I wasn't the only one, and he knew he had somebody that had been through it too. I'd beaten it.
And by that time, you were probably off the meds. And
I was coming off the meds.
Able to give him hope that it may not last forever.
Right, and that was kind of cool. So fast forward, had a regular high school and college, and I was living in Dallas, and I was 26, and it was right after Thanksgiving. I knew every time I ate a lot of food, I felt real tired and lethargic and miserable, and I couldn't figure that out. Well, I went out for dinner with a friend of mine, and we went, and I think it was her birthday, so we went and had a cake, and this one restaurant in Dallas had this huge cake, and I had German chocolate cake, and I went through the roof. I felt terrible. I called her when I got home, and I said, look, I got to go to the hospital. I don't feel good. And they took me to the hospital. They did some tests, and they stuck my finger, and they said, hey, man, you're good, but you have diabetes. And I said, what is that? I thought I was invincible, you know. I'd beat epilepsy and had asthma under control.
How old are you?
26.
26.
Yep. So I learned a lot about sugar diabetes. Like Wilford Brimley says, diabetes. Or it's called the sugars. Yeah, I joke a lot about it. I have a lot of fun with my illnesses. But yeah, so I got diagnosed with diabetes, and I had to get on a regimen. And I was marginally managing it. It was through exercise and diet, and then I had to take one pill. So from 26 to 35, I ran pretty hard and lived a normal life. Managed it when I could, but really wasn't too worried. I thought I was invincible. I didn't think, with everything I'd had in my life, I didn't think I was going to make it to 30 anyway, and I did. And that was great. We had a good 30th birthday. It was fun. And then I turned 35, and it was December. And if you want to stop and ask questions, that's fine, because I know you asked me about my childhood. I'm kind of just going right through it. But
that's all right.
Are you good?
Yeah.
So the big one was, the first big one was December 9th, 2005. And that was my sister's birthday. That night I went over to a buddy of mine, Gary's house, and every Sunday we'd watch football and have steaks and drink sippers, which were a cocktail we drank, Jack and water, and watch the game and have a good time. Well, I felt horrible, and I checked my blood sugar, and it was fine. But I went to bed in a lot of pain, and I was just miserable the whole night. Well, I had this dog at the time, Audrey Biscuits, and she would not leave my side. She was supposed to sleep in the living room, but she refused. And she slept on my stomach where it hurt. But she was warm, and so it felt good. So I got up and walked her and put her in the kennel, and then went to Whataburger and got my Diet Dr. Pepper and a taquito. I took a bite of my taquito and a swig of that Dr. Pepper, and I about passed out. It hurt so bad. And I had a company at the time called Tumble Bus, and I had kids that I had to teach at 9 o'clock. And so I said, well, suck it up. You got a job to do, and you're going to do it. We don't quit in our family. And
hence the hat.
yeah, never quit, right? So I got to Sugarland to get my bus, and I could barely get out of the truck. And I knew something was not right at all. I was in so much pain, I could hardly move. So I called off classes for that morning and drove to my doctor's office. And this was about 7 o'clock. And I said, I'll just wait till 9 o'clock when they open up. Well, they found me passed out on my steering wheel from pain at 9 o'clock. My doctor was coming in, or the nurse was coming in, and she saw me. And she beat on the window and got me up and got me in. And they checked, did some tests, and hit me with a pain shot. And they said, you got to go to the ER. You are in bad shape. So I got my wits together, and I refused to take an ambulance because I didn't have insurance at the time. I was self-insured. And the hospital was 2 blocks away. So I got enough medicine in me to be coherent, but take the edge off that pain, and drove to the ER, and my doctor had called it, said they got somebody coming in. And I went in, and they ran some tests, and I had severe pancreatitis. And bouts can be caused by alcohol, and they thought it was because I drank the night before, and probably that's what it was that brought it on. But I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and my goal was to get out for Christmas. So we got it subsided, and pancreatitis, the only way to beat that is to take you off you go NPO, which is no food or water, and they treat you for pain and let your body reverse. And in 2 weeks, I was in enough, and had recovered enough where they said I could go home and finish. They thought I'd beat it. Well, I went home, and we had Christmas, and I was still pretty miserable. Called the doctor. He said, I think you're just recovering. Well, that was not the case. And on New Year's Eve, 2005, I was sitting at my parents' house, and I couldn't eat, and I hadn't been able to eat for a couple days, and I felt terrible, and I had trouble getting out of bed and moving, and I had got my ass whooped, y'all.
How long between your first attack and this day?
Well, it was from December 9th for 2 weeks. So the 18th, I guess.
So not very long.
From the 18th through the 30th. Yeah. 31st. I started coughing. I started coughing up blood. And I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. I said, this ain't good, but this sucks.
You didn't want to live?
I was miserable. I wasn't living, I was existing. I could barely eat anything. I could barely keep anything down. And now I'm coughing up blood. I knew that's pretty much a bad sign.
Yeah.
I mean, that's internal bleeding. And we live in main streets of El Lago. And my doctor that knew everything about this was in Katy. So my mom said, get in the truck and I'm taking you to Katy because there is no way you're dying on my watch. And I said, Mom, just let me just go to bed. And she said, nope, get in the truck. I've had enough. And when Mom says something like that, you do it. And I listen to my mother, and she's a strong woman, and I'm afraid of her.
It's good to be a little afraid of your women.
Yep. So I got in the truck and went to the ER, and the doctor knew me. He's the same one that treated me before in the ER, not 20 days earlier. And he ran some tests, and they did an x-ray, and he came in, and he's sitting there, and he had tears in his eyes. He said, Darin, I got bad news. And I said, what? He said, you have necrotizing pancreatitis, which means your pancreas is eating itself. And I would recommend that you call anybody that you need to call and get your affairs in order because you probably got about 4 hours. I'm going to go write some orders for some pain meds. We're going to get you comfortable and get you up to ICU. There's no medicine we can give you other than pain. And do you have anybody here? And I said, yeah, but I need to get my shit together before I tell my mom and dad.
So basically there was nothing they could do.
No, there was nothing they could do. So he left, and
no surgery was an option at that point.
No, it was already eating itself. And so he left, and in the ER it wasn't rooms, it was curtains that were divided, like little areas. And I'm sitting there, and I got 4 hours to live. What the hell do you do, right? I mean, I'm trying to get my thoughts in order, and who do I need to call, and what do I need to do? Is there anybody I need to talk to, make amends or settle deals or what, So have a little pity party, and this curtain flies open, and this black lady, she said, hey, honey. I said, yeah. She goes, I need to tell you something. I said, well, now's not a good time. She goes, it's the right time. She goes, this is a huge, huge black lady. She must have been 500 pounds. And I said, what? And she said, I heard what that doctor said, and you're not going to die today. I had a vision, and you're not dying. I'm telling you that. And I said, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And she goes, you better get right, because you're not dying. And she closed that curtain. And that was it. And I was like, holy crap. So the doctor comes in, and
Did you believe her?
I didn't know what to think. I mean, I think I'm dying.
Yeah.
So the doctor comes in, and he has this shot. And I said, hold up, dude. I said, I got to know something. Who's this lady next door to me, this black lady? He goes, we haven't had anybody in this hospital like that. Nobody's been in that room all day. I said, no, this lady, she just threw back the curtain. And he's like, man, I think you're hallucinating or something. I know you're in a lot of pain, And he said, let me give you this shot and we'll get you up to ER. I said, you can give me half of it because I'm not dying today.
All right.
And I said, you know
what?
what?
Her words into your heart.
That was God telling me that I'm not going to die. And so, you kind of, I know in my darkest time, I look for a sign. And while I was sitting there thinking about things, God knows that. So he comes to you whenever, not when you're ready, but whenever he's ready. So they moved me up to the ICU. And my mom, my dad had to go home to take some medicine. My mom stayed with me. And it was about 10 o'clock, and I was in a lot of pain. And I said, hey, I'm hurting. And I said, I think I need to poop. And the nurse said, "You don't need to poop, Darin. You have nothing in your system." I said, "I need to poop." And my mom said, "If he's got to go, he's got to go." And she goes, "Well, you can't even walk. You're on so much drugs. I'll bring you a toilet in here." So they brought me a toilet, and I sat there. And this is gross, but all that came out was a little piece of gray clay. And, it wasn't even the size of my pinky finger. And took care of my business and got back in bed. The nurse came in, and she looked at me, and I said, "I know. What does gray poop mean?" And she said, "Honey, I'm going to give you some medicine, and we're going to let you get some sleep." She said, "Your organs are failing, and you're at the last stages, and that's why you're in so much pain." And I said, "What time is it?" And she said, 10:30. And I said, "I don't want that medicine." I said, "I'm not dying. I'm going to see 2006. And she said, "Honey, it's going to get a lot worse. And your organs are failing. You're in organ failure." And I said, "I don't want that medicine." And I was on a lot of drugs already. And my mom spoke up. She said, "If he don't want it, you're not giving it to him." And I said, "You can give it to me at midnight, 12:01. But I'm going to see 2006. I'm not dying on 2005. And so we watched the ball drop. And it was in Channel 13. We watched, Channel 13 had it that year. And we watched the celebration in Houston. And it was 12:01. I hit that damn button. And she comes running in. And I said, "I'm ready for some medicine now," because I made it. And I looked at my mom. I said, "I love you. And I'm not dying, but I got to get some rest. This is killing me." And
your mom, of course, thought
she sat there, and she didn't. She said, "You'll be all right." She didn't. That lady, she can handle pain, and she did not show weakness when I did. And they gave me a hell of a shot, and I passed out and went to sleep. And I woke up, I think, 5 or 6 hours later, and I'm like, whew. I pinched myself, and my mom woke up, and the nurse comes running in, and he says on monitors, and they said, "We need to get you to x-rays, because your color's coming back a little bit." And
it's good. They saw some hope.
And so they got me to x-rays, and they said, "You ain't going to believe this." The doctor comes in, he said, "You ain't going to believe this, but your pancreas quit eating itself." You're not supposed to be here. That pancreas, you have from anywhere from 15 to 10% left. That's it. And you can live on that, but we've got to let this thing, if you make it, because what it was, I had 7 pus pockets, and if any one of them burst, you'd die. So I had to wait for it to harden. So they put me in the hospital, and then the hospital came to me and said, after, I think it was the Rose Bowl. Yeah, it was the national championship. UT was in the national championship. And they said, "Hey, we got some bad news. We can't keep you here anymore. You're stable. You don't have insurance. And we've called around to all the hospitals, and nobody will take you." And I made friends with this nun, Sister Mary, and she was there. She'd check on you. It was St. Catherine's Hospital. And she comes in, she goes, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Man, I ain't doing good. I gotta go home." She goes, "You can't go home." I said, "Well, they can't keep me here anymore because I don't have insurance, and all the hospitals have turned me down in the area. So they said, go home and then see what happens from there." And she said, "Well, I haven't called." And I said, "Okay, would you mind doing that?" And she goes, "No." And she came back after a couple hours. She goes, "They're telling me no, Darin." And she goes, I got one more hospital to call, but they told them no, it was UTMB, and I'm going to go call them because I couldn't get a hold of them." And
was it seriously just the insurance?
I didn't have any insurance and nobody will take you. Yeah, because I was stable. Hospitals have to stabilize it and they can let you go. And that's the oath thing. So
even though you had 10% of a pancreas, you
didn't matter. I was stable. Yeah, I could wait it out at home. So she said, I'll be back. And she smiled and she comes back. And this lady had to be 70, 65, 70 years old. She comes back running in and she said, Darin, you're not going to believe this. UTMB said they'll take you. I talked to this man named Dr. Nealon, and he is the world-renowned pancreatic specialist. He does pancreatic surgeries weekly.
And
This
she
guy,
just happened to get him on the
she
phone.
got him on the phone, and he said he would take me.
Amazing.
And so they put me in an ambulance, and the nurse comes in and she's like, Darin, I saw that ambulance. You're going to need a pain shot because it's rough, and you got an hour drive. So they gave me a shot, got me down to UTMB, and Dr. Nealon was there to meet me, and UT was in the playoffs, and I knew I wasn't going to get much help there because they're in the playoffs, and it's UTMB, and all the doctors were wearing orange, and I'm not a UT fan, but I was that day, and and I've become kind of one since. But, you know, they took care of me like it was my own, and I was one of their own, you know? I mean, I stayed positive, and, yeah, I mean, she said just celebrate life, you know? That was her advice to me. Stay positive and celebrate life, because if you're negative, then you're going to go down a negative path, and that's not good for your body. Well, Dr. Nealon told me, he said, Darin, I want to give you some advice. If anybody's negative in your room while we're treating you, you tell them to leave. You have the right to kick people out. And if anybody gets down, you tell them they need to leave. I don't want any negative words spoken around you. I don't want you to get in a bad frame. If you got pain, you let them know. If, you know, we're going to get you through this. And I was there for over a month and a half, and then
he really understood the subtleties of
he believed
medicine.
in medicine and the medicine of the
healing.
mind. Yeah,
healing.
And he cared.
He was a healer.
And so he said, Darin, we got to get you out of here. You know, and we're going to send you home. They started, the cocoon started, a pus started hardening. And he said, I don't want you to drive. Don't get in any fights. You can live, but, you know, be very careful because one of those breaks and you're done. There's nothing we can do. And so I'd have to go back every 2 weeks to do x-rays to see where they were. So it was March or April. I think it was March. All my big surgeries happened in Marches, but yeah, they had to go in and hollow out and get rid of my cocoons and hardened, and they opened me up and got all that pancreas out, and I've got 10% of my pancreas. And that's where I would have hoped that my story would end, but it hadn't. In 2010, I started losing organs. I lost an appendix, and then I lost a gallbladder. And then 2015, I had a heart attack. And what happened was, ironically, we're in the coronavirus days. I had a virus in December that attacked my heart. And 9 times out of 10, the odds are your body defeats it and it goes away. Well, my body didn't, and it presented itself 3 weeks into a brand new job. I was walking upstairs and couldn't get up. And that was weird because I'd been working out and I was in the best shape of my life. And it was the damnedest thing. I couldn't get up the stairs. So I had met Sandra, and I don't know, when I was going through my gut problems, she was praying for me through. We have a lot of mutual friends, and she was praying for me. Didn't even know me, but and I thank you for that. But Sandra and I were dating, and you had a girls' trip planned with your daughter. You were going to UT, doing this, Austin.
Arizona.
Austin. And I knew that I didn't want to ruin your trip. So I kept it to myself, and I know you probably never forgive me for that, but I got you off to Austin, and then I drove myself to Clear Lake ER.
Yeah, I do remember having that phone call.
Yep. And I went to the Clear Lake ER, and I said, hey, Dr. Jackson, I got some problems. I'm having some trouble breathing. I think I got a cough or a cold. They did some tests, and he said, yeah, you got problems. He said, you got heart problems. And we got to get you to the ER. I think you've had a heart attack. And I'm like, what? And he said, yeah. Now, Dr. Jackson owns emergency care. And his staff have saved my bacon several times. And I've never met a more compassionate doctor, and one that I listen to. And when he looked me in the eyes and said, you had a heart attack, I had a heart attack. And he said, I need you to go to Clear Lake ER, and we're going to send you by ambulance. And I said, it's a mile away. Let me just drive there. I drove here. He said, no, you are going. We got to get you. You've got to do some tests. We got to figure out what this is going on. So through the testing, they saw that my heart was weak, and I had to wear a vest. So I had to call you and tell you, don't come home. We're trying to figure out what's going on, but it looks like I had a heart attack, and I'm going to be wearing a vest defibrillator for the next 3 months. So they put me in this vest that if you have a heart attack, it'll jumpstart you. Most of the time. It's a portable defibrillator.
Yeah, external.
Because
that's scary.
If you don't have it, you'll have a heart attack and die. But a lot of times when you have this condition, when a virus attacks your heart, there's a pretty good chance it'll come back. And of course mine didn't. And so 4 months into it, in June, they put in a pacemaker and defibrillator.
Well, yeah, you went through a bunch of tests and found out that.
Right. They found out that it was a virus.
Ventricular failure.
I had congestive heart failure, and so I had a heart attack. And people have come to me throughout all this, and now we'll get out there all this dire stuff, but I guess I stayed positive through it all, because I believe that everybody has an expiration date, and nobody knows what that is. God does, but we don't. So live it until he calls you home, because you got to answer. You don't get a choice. If he calls you home, you're going. You can't go around the block one more time. So I choose to take on adversity head on, and I'm not afraid of hospitals, and I'm not afraid of doctors and health conditions, because I've fought them my whole life. But you got to stay positive and know that you control your situation, and you can be happy in any situation. Because everybody would come to me and say, whenever I was sick, I can't believe you're doing it. I don't know how you get through it. I said, man, I got a hospital, I got doctors, I got all my friends coming to see me. I said, there's people over there dying in Iraq, and Iran, and Afghanistan. Our soldiers are fighting. I got a pretty good life. I always look, there's always somebody that's got it worse than you are. And I have a hell of a support system. At one point, at St. Catherine's, they had to quit telling people to come, because my friends would come visit me. And, I have two very good friends, Gary and Bill, and I was on NPO. Funny story. And I was no water, no nothing. Well, I had an NG tube that I could put it down. It brings anything up that goes in, because you're not allowed to swallow anything. And I was so dry, my lips were chapped. Well, Gary and Bill said, I'm not letting you suffer like this. And they would sneak in Gatorade or water and give me a bottle cap full, just to wet my whistle. And that got me through it. Because you're so high on pain drugs, but you're so miserable you can't hardly talk, and your lips are chapped, your tongue's swollen. And if it wasn't for them coming in once a day to slip me a little cap full of water, it was going to come right back up anyway. It wasn't enough to do any damage, but they didn't want to react your body, because you don't want to take the chance of reinvigorating that pancreas and causing the problems more. But at that point, it wasn't worth it to me to live in misery. My tongues were cracking, my lips were cracked, and they would sneak it in. And I'm thankful to this day for those guys. I mean, they're my outlaw buddies, you know. They're the guys that, the ride or dies that'll be there for you. And I was so lucky to have those types of people in my life. And my friends, you know, countless friends. I think of Rue and my friend Heather, we call her Sexy Heather. They would come up and just rub my hands with lotion because I was so dry from no water. And it was like the smallest thing would do so much, you know. And my mom would just change my socks. And when you've whooped, your ass has been whooped so hard that you've been whooped back to your mama, where she's got to change your socks because you can't do it. That's when you know you've been somewhere, you know. But the women, the guys would keep me strong, right? My guy friends would keep me strong, and I remind me to be tough. And then the women would, my mom and Sexy Heather and Rue and countless others would come in and be that tender side that was nurturing. And I needed both to get it through, you know. I needed a lot to get through because I couldn't do it on my own. But my job was to not let them see me down. Because if you're down, then they're going to get down, and that's going to snowball. So anybody that's going through anything like this, you got to stay positive. You got to stay up. And there were times when nobody'd be there where I'd lose it.
That's when you can allow yourself to really feel
you're
feeling.
You got to breathe, right?
Everything you're feeling has to go through you.
You gotta know what. You gotta hold a good presence to the world, so the world knows that you can't be beat. But you gotta let that out too, and it's okay to feel down. You can have a down day or a bad day, and those were days where I just wouldn't have visitors, and you know, one or two, but that's okay. You gotta have those days, yeah.
We're born here trying to survive.
And I'm not saying you gotta be tough. Tough isn't not accepting your fate. Tough is, you want to be tough in the sense that you don't quit, you don't give up. As long as you've got a breath left, you've got fight in you. And you don't quit, you don't accept. Doctors tell you things, but they can be wrong too. And I've had doctors save my life, and I've had doctors be wrong. And both me and the doctor are happy that they were wrong. But that was God's hand in it, right? I mean, any doctor that I tell that I had necrotizing pancreatitis, they want to call me a liar, and then they want to tell you. Then when they read my charts, they're like, dude, you're a walking miracle. I don't see it that way. I see it that God didn't want me to be home yet. You know, he kind of checked me up a little bit. Because I've had to turn my life around, right? And I was not an alcoholic. I want to get that out there. My pancreas, they did studies, and Dr. Nealon did studies on it, and he said, it wasn't alcohol that got you. It was statin drugs. And statins, they're finding out, are very dangerous drugs, but they're very prescribed. And the American Heart Association, heart patients take them. As soon as you get a heart attack, they're going to put you on a statin, a blood thinner, and there's a small percentage of people that it'll kill you. And they have side effects, and they're nasty. So, luckily, I've since got off statins, obviously, and got on a keto diet. My heart doctor, Dr. Ali, is a walking book of knowledge on keto, and you know, your diet has a lot to do with your health. And we've been on keto for 2 years, and over 2 years now, and I've lost 30 pounds and feel a lot better, you know, even got better looking than I was, and you know, it's a game changer. And what you put in your body is what it's going to process. And he actually prescribed me to hunt and fish. And that was kind of cool because I asked the doctor to write you a prescription for that.
And a few other things.
And a few. So it was a good, good exercise and hunting and fishing, eating clean meats and vegetables, cut out all the carbs, cut out all the sugars, and that's what we were made to eat anyway. And through all that, I've seen nothing but positive and a rosy future. And I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but there's so much to tell you. But that's kind of my never quit story, my but did you die story. The advice I'd say is stay positive, don't give up. I don't care if you've got a breath, if you wake up, you got a chance. And that old adage, so you say there's a chance. Yes, there is. Don't take no for an answer with your health. You make up your mind that if you decide that you're going to live through this, you can do it. You can fight through it. You're not going to. There's only one thing you can't beat. You ain't going to beat God. When God says you're coming home, you're coming home. But other than that, you can do it. And I was afraid of death until I was 35. And I would stay awake at night thinking about death. And I didn't want to die. It was crippling some days that I was afraid of death. And that's something I've never told anybody. And when I went through this, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of dying. I've been at death's door. That don't scare me. Because I got so much life to live, and I've got a wife, family, grandkids. I realized what mattered in life, and it's not money. It's experiences, and it's the people in your life, and that's the main thing. I was chasing that almighty dollar, and I think through all this crazy medical issues, it changed my perspective. To one, stay positive, and two, realize what matters in life and what's most important. And that's you and the grandkids and my mom and dad, and sister and relatives and family, and I've got a very blessed life. I've got something that a lot of people would trade in a heartbeat for, and I don't take that for granted 1 minute. And I would encourage you guys to do that too. If anybody's fighting cancer or heart disease or diabetes or pancreatitis, you name it, the COVID-19 stuff, don't quit, don't give up. Fight, and fight for what's right, and know that you're going to get through this, and stay positive, and you just might. So that's what I got.
One thing I see as your major strength is you never awfulize anything. Like, no matter what the news is from the doctor, no matter whether I'm in tears over in the corner, no matter what, you don't go there. You're like, that is not going to happen. I'm getting through this. We are having that AED implant. It is going to be fine. Boom. Done. It's like you never move to a future situation that is worse. You always move to a better place. And
I look for the option.
You always see the vision of healing, vision of healing, vision of healing. You never ever see anything other than that. And that's your strength, man.
Well, and I've been brought doctors. I've been lucky enough to have doctors that can show me that. They had that same vision, right? Dr. Nealon, Dr. Jackson, Dr. Ali, Saul.
Yeah, some good mentors.
Saul's a nurse that's seen my butt more times than you have, probably, because he's had to give me so many shots and put tubes down me and intubate me, and that guy's been through a lot with me. I've challenged him quite a bit.
And yeah, you skipped right over that whole thing.
I did, but there's so many things. But
so many more medical stories.
But so I feel like
I release the need to learn through any pain and medical things.
Well, I'll just tell you this: I will take on any medical challenge you give me, and I'll beat it. And
I already did that. Or you could just say, been there, done that.
I feel like my fight is with my body and with proving that I can beat it. And I'm up for any challenge.
I mean, your body has done everything.
Yeah, and I've learned to take care of my body since then. You know, I mean,
There's
I'm
no
still
fighting your body. Your body is you.
But
you know.
But more importantly, my mind and my will.
Yeah.
Get me where I need to be.
Yeah. What you do in your mind affects your body. You learn that somewhere along the way. And then the other thing that was so powerful in your story is all of the tiny miracles that happen over and over and over. You're sitting in a car passed out, but the nurse coming to work sees you and bangs on the window.
Yep.
Otherwise, what would have happened? You know, a nurse swings open the thing and tells you you're going to live.
Not the patient. That wasn't there.
No
that was
one's
an
ever
angel.
seen her.
Right.
No
that
one
was
ever
God
knows
sending
her.
an angel to me.
Right. And you were given the vision of life and not to lean into death. That no matter what they said to you about how you're going to die, you didn't take it on. And she stood you up, you know. And all these little miracles all throughout that.
Well,
even your friend when you were an epileptic, and you learned that, you know, that epilepsy that was a burden possibly at some point became your blessing, and that's how you were blessing that young man who was going through it.
Yep. I think
it's like all those miracles
I had
that were in your path, teaching you things.
You know, I had a pretty strong upbringing. I was raised Catholic, and I went to the Catholic youth group and found peace and solace through that, and learned at an early age to lean on God. And you know, somebody told me once, "You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plan, because He's got the plan for you. You don't, and you just got to give your cares to Him and trust Him, and He'll get you there." And if you're going to give him a problem, you can't take it back and try to rework it. And that's kind of how I looked at all my illnesses. Once I say, hey, look, I got a heart attack, okay, fix it. I can't. You know, I got stomach problems, pancreatic problems. He gave me a sign that He's going to fix it. So you got to let it go. Once you give it to Him, you can't take it back. Because you got to let God do God's work. You're not God. And He will work through people to fix what's wrong. But you can't work through people. You're not God. And people ask me a lot of times,
that was total acceptance.
How do you get through this? I don't know how you get through this. Well, I had God.
You just surrender it. Like, here it is.
Yeah, I have God. I said I don't know how anybody could go through any of these things without God. You know, God's I don't talk about my faith a lot, and I don't go to Catholic church. But me and God, we're buds, and I think that you just got to live your life in a way that I'm no means. I mess up every day. I'm extremely average. I'm extremely. There's nothing special about me or my life, but I believe that if I try to do the right thing whenever I can and live a life that God would be proud of, then He'll keep working through me. And that's what I do, you know. And I can live my life, and hopefully somebody can see that.
There's plenty special about
Because
you.
I don't need to tell anybody about God. God, I will show them through what I do. And hopefully somebody sees that. And if they do, then I'm doing the right thing, you know? So, yeah. Well, thanks for interviewing me.
Yeah. And you guys heard all the things that are special about Boot. You now know why he is such a special person. The way he thinks and the way he comes to people's aid. Last week when I was having a little mini meltdown about what was happening in our world, he's like, babe, we all have an expiration date. I have said that to myself 20 times this week. That's true, man. Okay. That's total acceptance. If I am God's, then I am God's here, or I am God's elsewhere. We all have an expiration date. And he lives that. He does not fear death. And
Yeah, I beat
He's-
that one.
he's learned an incredible amount in this lifetime, and he's able to teach that to other people around him.
Well, thanks for interviewing me. It's kind of a weird deal doing my thing, but
Well, thanks for telling it.
yeah, I appreciate it, and I love you, and you guys, thanks for tuning in,
All right.
and we'll till next week. It's the But Did You Die podcast from the mean streets of El Lago, and this is Darin Bood Clark signing off.
Bye.